Hello and welcome to Waltrip Unfiltered. I'm so happy this morning. I have a great guest. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is joining me. Dale, thanks for your time. Appreciate you sharing some stories with me on my podcast. How you been, buddy?
We've been good, man. Thanks for having me on the show. Good to see you. Everybody's hanging in there. We're in pretty good shape here at the house. Took this whole thing pretty seriously from the get-go early on and made some preparations to make sure we had enough diapers and wipes and all the other essentials that we might need if we get locked down in the house, and been trying to stay healthy and hope everybody out there is doing the same thing.
Well, the fun part about the podcast for me, and I know you've probably experienced the same thing, is how much I enjoy getting just to talk to my buddies, getting a chance to hang out. And that's certainly the case today. Before we get rolling, how you doing with all your social distancing, and how's Amy? I know it's a big time in y'all's lives. Everything okay at home?
Everything's really good here, and we're really lucky. When this thing first started, getting talked about, even before we really had a lot of cases here in the United States, I went and made sure that I got everything that I needed for a few months in case we did have to, get quarantined or get locked down in our houses. And I mean, diapers, wipes, milk, just the things that were necessary for Isla. And we already had a pretty good freezer full of food and all the things that we typically just have here on a normal. But I wanted to make sure I got everything we needed in case things got really bad. I took this really seriously from the very get-go, and ever since then we have been pretty much at the house. We haven't been out and about and doing anything really outside of the gates here, and I'm enjoying it myself. I was always pretty introverted, and before I met Amy I would hardly ever really get out and do much, or wasn't really a socializing kind of guy, but she certainly changed that. But anyhow, so this is really comfortable for me. To be stuck in my house for days and weeks on end is not really that tough for me. I've been racing online on iRacing and enjoying that, and just how much that's exploded due to the circumstances has been a lot of fun for me. And it's been great to be able to get Isla up in the morning and be with her and be with Amy. And the only I hate to complain because really we had it great. We're in a great situation. I think about people that are in tougher situations. Imagine being in an apartment building, sort of stuck in that small apartment and not able to get out and navigate and move around like you want to. And that would be, I'm sure there's people that in some really, really tough situations that are struggling with anxiety and concern and their own sanity, through this process. But Amy's pregnant. So that's been a challenge for her. She's already emotional and going through that. And, this hasn't been the best circumstances for her. And so trying to help her and comfort her through that process. All non-essential hospital visits were canceled. So our, week or every 2 week checkup that we would have to go make sure everything's going well with the pregnancy, all that's gone away. We were just a week or two away from doing some blood tests to be able to find out a lot of important information about Amy's pregnancy, along with the sex of the baby, and all that has went away. So it's changed that process for us as opposed to how it was with Isla, our first child. And but it's been okay. It is what it is. That's sort of the way I go about it. We deal with the circumstances and the hand you're dealt each day, and it's going well. And there's over the last couple of days there has been some good news about the virus and its spread and the rate that it's spreading and so forth. There's been some progress, I suppose. But everybody's worried. We're worried, and can't wait to, get things back to normal. Not only just to get back to the racetrack, but to be able to go out and do the things that you just want to do. And certainly we took all that stuff for granted before this. I think everybody's going to have a new appreciation for life and for those experiences that we take for granted every day after all this.
The only thing that hurts my feelings is like you look around and you wonder now, you used to take so much for granted, and you can't do that, especially at this time right now. My beautiful daughter, Macy, her college graduation got canceled. And you talked about, our problems aren't as big as other people's. Just the emotion, I guess, of it all is what's the hardest to deal with. And so I'm glad to hear that you've taken it seriously and you've been hunkered down. And I'm also glad that you have something that can distract your attention for a short period of time on the weekends. And that's iRacing. I know you've been an iRacing guy for a long, long time. Didn't you meet Denny Hamlin through iRacing back in the day? Is there a story there?
Yeah. Denny was racing online. We had, me and my friends, you get online and you start racing on iRacing. One of the first things that you learn immediately is that it's a big community. It's a big neighborhood, and you meet people from all over the country. And that experience of just meeting and interacting with people that have something of interest the same as you, sim racing, is a lot of fun. You share stories, you share tips. You know where to go to get assistance with hardware, software issues and hurdles. You get information on what the best, most affordable hardware or software to be using is. I mean, it's just a really, really helpful community of great people all across the world. I mean, iRacing is actually maybe even more popular in Europe and overseas on the road course side of things. There's more customers on the service each day than you would have on the oval side. But it's just great to be able to interact with people. And so that's how I met Denny. I met Denny racing online. I met a lot of people, and I hired, some of those friends that I met early on 2 decades ago. Some of them we've hired and brought over to Junior Motorsports. They've moved here to North Carolina from wherever they were. Steven Steffen, that handles all of our, he handles all the flights, rental cars, hotel rooms, uniforms for crew, for drivers. He handles all the logistics for Junior Motorsports. I hired him from iRacing, met him on iRacing. Lee Langley runs our parts department, met him online. Josh Berry, that races our late model car that just won the Martinsville race last year, 50 late model wins, met him online. TJ Majors, my best friend and used to spot for me in racing, met him racing online. Denny Hamlin, the list goes on and on. I got a guy, Brad Davies, in our IT department I met racing online. It's just a great community that I've been a part of for a really long time, and I really appreciate the impact it's had on my life. And iRacing is the best, most realistic, whether it's on PC, console, it reigns supreme when it comes to being as close as you're going to get to driving a real race car, or knowing or feeling what a race car might be like from the comfort of your own home. So I'm a big fan of it, big supporter of it. And it does annoy Amy sometimes with how much time I spend on there, but it is in times like this, it certainly is something that I enjoy doing, and I can get on there and race and for a moment forget about everything else is happening in the world. And that's kind of nice, but it definitely is something I've been a big fan of. Denny, we started a league. This was 20 years ago.
03 yep. Or 2 or so.
Yeah, we started a league and with a bunch of people, and he was part of that league, and we would race weekly, and we all communicated and chatted and talked regularly every single night pretty much. And that's how I got to know him. I knew that he worked for his family's trailer business. He was a racer himself in Virginia in late models. He was very successful. And through that friendship, once he came to me one day and said, "Hey, I've got an opportunity to talk to Gibbs. I got a meeting with them in Daytona, and I've got to drive to Daytona, got to get down there and meet with them, but I got nowhere to stay, and I'd like to kind of come hang out." It was during the Daytona 500 Speed Weeks in 2004.
Yeah.
And he said, I'd like to come hang out a little bit if I could, but I got nowhere to stay. And I said, you can crash on the bus. All right, just sleep on the couch. 1 night, 2 nights, many nights as you need. Go to your meeting, do everything you need. I'll be coming in and out. Don't worry about me. And I hardly saw him, but he stayed on the bus, and we won the race on Sunday, the Daytona 500, biggest day of my life. And Denny came to Victory Lane, and we got done with all the Victory Lane celebration, and he's standing there, and I said, here, take the trophy back to the bus. It's your responsibility. So he's on the golf cart with my bus driver driving the Daytona 500 trophy back to the bus to make sure it got home safe while I took off and did media and whatnot. But it's a pretty cool story because Denny eventually, honestly, I was hoping that, Denny was a hot commodity back then, very successful. And I was hoping that DEI might have a chance to get Denny. There's a lot of great stories about Denny, Kyle Busch, other drivers where DEI was trying to make a little play there. But he ended up getting the job at Gibbs, obviously, and racing in their Xfinity car and moving on the Cup and having a successful career. And, we became competitors. We still remained friendly, but we became competitors on the track. And so that socializing or racing together online and the friendship that we had sort of went away. And now it's kind of all come back full circle because we raced at Homestead, came down to in the simulation the other week on Fox. We raced at Homestead and came down to me and him battling for the win. And after the race, we're texting back and forth. And I'm like, man, can you believe this? 20 years later, here we are racing online again. And it's me and you. And boy, it felt great. It felt like old times, and sure was something I think, that me and him really enjoyed. And a lot of other people seem to enjoy it as well.
Could you imagine his emotion after winning the Daytona 500 for the first time and thinking, man, I carried Dale Jr.'s trophy back for him. How that became such a big circle that he's been living in?
Yeah, Denny's life is, pretty interesting. And we've gotten to see a little bit of that over the last couple of years. There's been a couple great pieces put together about Denny's career as a race car driver when he started out. He still has those race cars, that he has this old 4-cylinder mini stock or whatever that he raced that Joe Gibbs had restored. And it's just really cool how his family put everything, devoted themselves into Denny's racing. And Denny had the determination, to go out there and try to make a name for himself and win. And I'm sure when he's winning late model races, up in Virginia and so forth, and doing that on a regular basis, I'm sure he was wondering, like, how can I get this next chance? Where's the next chance coming from? And luckily Gibbs was able to see that potential in him and recruit him. And so, his story is really unique, and he's a interesting guy, great friend of yours. I know you and him spend a lot of time together golfing and hanging out. And Denny's just, he's just a funny guy. I always enjoy, how he approaches life, and his sort of outlook to life is different than most people. And but his story, is his personal story with his family, his father, and how that all worked out. It's for him to tell, it's not for me to tell, but how he raced at home, how they built their program, and how he and his father sort of interacted early in his Cup career, Xfinity career, and all that is a very personal experience for Denny, and he shaped the person that he is today.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that, because I think, Denny, you and I each have differing, interesting stories that got us to NASCAR and to be able to win some races for me here and there. But when I was born, my brother was gone. He was off being a racer, and I lived in Kentucky. So I just got glimpses of him and wanting to be just like him. He was my hero. With Denny, it was all hands-on from his family, but he didn't have a famous brother out there. And for you, I think, Dale was busy being a race car driver in your formative years as well. How interesting is that the fact that we were able to all achieve success, but all went about in the beginning much differently.
Yeah, I think about that too with other drivers as well, like Matt Kenseth. I really didn't think about this or care about it so much when I was younger. But now that I am, 45 years old, a couple years removed from being a driver, and I can look back at, that my past, my story, how I worked through to get those opportunities, and I think about Matt Kenseth and Denny. I love seeing footage of those guys at their home track, racing their late model, their street stock, whatever it is. I love seeing Kyle Busch running at the Bull Ring in his Legends car. It really humanizes these guys.
Yeah.
And it really gives you an understanding of the steps and the things to try to get those, get how they learn, how they cut their teeth, how they ground through those early years in their career. They weren't grinding in their mind in that moment. They were just racing and having fun and processing and going to the next racetrack or going to the next race the next week. But to look back at it now, it's really fun to see the different paths that people have taken. And it's fun to see them in those early years before the fame, the money, the stardom, because that's really the core of their personality, the core of their person is who they were back then. So that person's in there, right? And it's fun to see when you get that chance to see some of that old footage, and a lot of that's been popping up over the last couple of years as we try to tell the story of these drivers, of who they are. That's our best asset in this sport, is the personalities and the drivers, and really who they are. How can we take that driver and help you relate to him and help you connect to him and understand him as he could have been the guy next door, because Denny was the guy next door for somebody at some point in their lives.
And I think that's interesting too. You say how it shapes you. There's a great picture. I saw it on Twitter. I looked for it this morning and I couldn't find it, but of me pitting my car at Richmond in 1990. I think you and I texted back and forth and decided, and you were there being a pit crew member for your dad, rolling the tire in. And then, so I love that story, and I love that that's who you were and how the crew loved you and embraced you. You had your uniform. Are those just fond memories? How do you look back on those times?
I wish I remembered them more easily. It's hard to, when I see those pictures of me running around the racetrack, I can't go, oh man, I remember that day, or rolling that tire. It just seems like a million years ago. So much has happened in my life from that moment to now that there's no way to keep it all up there. And I love seeing those pictures because it does remind me of how long I've been going to the track, and it gives me some sort of confidence in my ability to speak on it, right? To talk about my experiences today and how I view the sport, because I was there for the majority of my life, and I've seen it from a lot of different perspectives. I've seen it from that little kid wearing the uniform, rolling the tire, or driving us from the seat of a street stock car at Concord, or a late model stock car at Myrtle Beach or Nashville Fairgrounds. And, I've seen it from a lot of different positions and all the way to the broadcast booth today. And so I feel extremely lucky and blessed to have had so many perspectives. Obviously the success at any point during the time of my career was awesome, but to be able to see the sport from so many vantage points and has been a real blessing to me, and gave me a ton of appreciation for what the sport is, who it is, how it works, how many moving parts there are into keeping this whole machine going. But my path was different. I had a lot. People always ask me, was it tough being Dale Earnhardt Jr.? And my answer to that is always absolutely not. I had so many doors open to me because of that. Dad's success opened so many doors to me in comparison to Matt Kenseth, who had to open every single door himself. I compare myself to Matt a lot because we came up together. We raced in the Xfinity Series neck and neck. We raced for the Rookie of the Year in the Cup. Our careers were sort of happening right there in lockstep with each other. And we always chatted about that, communicated with each other about how each other was handling these certain situations. And his was the complete opposite of mine as far as how he got there. But I really enjoyed, my path and the things that I got to do. And Dad, I appreciate this about him. I'm mad about it now because I think back at my late model days, and I think, man, I could have had so much more success if there was somebody around that knew something about that race car, because I didn't know nothing about it. And with all due respect, everybody that I was going to the track with had about the same amount of knowledge as I did. So we didn't always, run the best, but we learned so much. And if Dad would have maybe put one guy in there that had a little bit of sense about caster camber and bump steer and things like that, I might have actually had a little more success than I did for those 4 years I was floundering around in the short tracks in my late model. But he wanted me to, if I was going to make it, that he would, if I was worth the investment of his time to go beyond a late model car, he would be able to know whether I was worth that time or that investment by putting me in that situation that he put me in. I didn't know it was frustrating or tough at the time, but man, I went to Nashville Fairgrounds, and I got to choose the springs and the nose weight and the wedge. I mean, I had no business trying to set the car up to make it fast. But when we did, we got close a couple of times, but man, if I'd have had somebody with any sense, we might have won a lot more races back then, because I didn't know whether I was going to make it at all, Michael. I ran 159 late model races, and I think I won 3. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I really wanted to do this for a living, and I don't know if it's going to happen, And then we got in the Xfinity car, and I got around some people that knew something about race cars, and we took off, and won a bunch of races and championships. And I'm like, oh, I can do it.
You needed someone to introduce you to Mr. Ackerman. I mean, just whoever that guy was, if you even knew what that meant, right?
I know, right? Oh man, I ran a whole year without bump steering my car. And boy, when I bump steered my car the first time, I went back to the track. I went, how come nobody told me about this? This is way better, right? The car went through the middle of the corner like it never went through there before. And I'm like, golly. And I look back, that's the worst thing. I'm 45 years old now, and I look back with all the knowledge I have today. I look back and think about that late model experience in the mid 90s, and, going to the track with a pair of 800s and a pair of 225s every single week, because I didn't know what else to put in it. Man, if I had a chance to do it all over again, right?
I don't know, man. It turned out all right.
Yeah, it did.
Those struggles probably help define you, because, when I read somewhere where you said that you were racing a late model in 1996, and you didn't take time to enjoy it because you were worried about everything. And that's just a racer in you, isn't it? Like, if you had a chance you win one race and you think, well, now I got to win another one. And I got to get to NASCAR. I got to make it.
Yeah, I remember that is true. When I was getting ready to retire from the Cup Series, I was like, man, I'm going back to late models, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to go back and have fun, because there's a lot of fun that I didn't have because I was too worried about whether I was going to be racing again, a year from now. And so I went to this was probably 1996 or 7. Wrangler came on board to send us to Charlotte Motor Speedway in the Xfinity car. And so we went over to the racetrack on Friday, and I'm really, really nervous. And I am in way over my head, like getting thrown into the deep end, not knowing how to swim. And this is way beyond me. So we're at the racetrack, and we're in the old garage that didn't have a roof. There's just cars and trucks parked everywhere, and we're just, we're parked in right behind our little hauler and gooseneck trailer, and we ain't got no stuff, right? We ain't got springs and sway bars, and we ain't got no box or nothing. We just got the car and the setup we brought, and a little bit of electricity and some air. And we go out there and practice, and and we're pretty good. We're in the top 10 in practice times, and practice is going on for about 30, 45 minutes, and we're still sitting around 8th or so. And I'm thinking, man, this is great. And so okay, well, let's go make a qualifying run. Qualifying's coming up later today. Let's go make a run. And we didn't know any better. So we left our 30-lap race tires on there and taped it off. And I went out there and wrecked. And spun out off a 4, and I'm spinning around and around and around and around, and bang, back into the fence. And pull in the garage. I want to cry, and I wanted to hide in a hole. I could have, if there was a hole in the ground, I'd have climbed in it. And that was it. You know, we didn't have another car, and I'd wrecked in front of everybody, and my dad and all his buddies down there in the Cup garage was watching, and so he's embarrassed in front of all his peers. And so we went home. I got in my car with a buddy of mine, and I drove to my house. And I didn't, you know, we loaded the car up, and I left. And so I imagine that they're taking the car back to the shop. I live right across the street from the shop in a double wide trailer, and me and my buddies went there, and I grabbed a bottle of vodka and set it down on the table in front of me, and was going to drink. And so we're sitting there, me and my friends, and it's like the biggest piggity party you ever seen in your life. And then the door flies open, the back door to the double wide flies open. It's about an hour later, right? Later, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Boom, door slams open. Boom, boom, boom. I know it's Dad immediately because I can hear the footsteps. And he walks in and sees me and my 2 buddies sitting there on the couch with a bottle of vodka in front of us, and flew off the handle, rightfully so. And he tells them guys to get in their car and leave. It's probably best for them to do. And they did. And he took me out on the back steps, and we sat down. And so we had a conversation, and I've talked about this before, but we had a conversation. He goes, "Man, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, my career's over with. I'm sitting here thinking about that. As far as I know, I just wrecked, and I don't know that I'm going to get another chance to try again. It's over." And he's like, "It ain't over. They took your car back to the shop, and those boys are over there cutting the body off of it now to send it off to get it fixed. You should be over there doing that. Why wasn't that your instinct, to go be with the car and do what they're doing with the car, and it just wasn't my instinct to do that. And I wish it was. I wish my instinct was to, how we going to fix this, right? But my instinct was to go, well, that's the end. Oh, well, I'll never get another shot." And so we sat on that back porch, and man, we talked for an hour. And just about, that's not the end. There'll be other opportunities. He wasn't going to say, "I'm going to put you in the car next week," or you're going to Michigan to race, or what. He wasn't making plans, like hardcore plans, but he's like, "Man, there'll be another shot. You got to keep trying. You got to want to fix that car. And if you show that initiative to want it, people will get behind that. If you're going to mope and be, this is the end of the world, nobody's going to want to join that party. Nobody's want to get behind that." So it was that was the most Dad thing that Dale Earnhardt ever did. And he wasn't ever, he put his arm around you. Now he would put his arm around you and tell you he's proud of you, or needle you about things and push you to do right or whatever in his way. But he never did those, we never had that sort of hallmark moment or conversation about things, life, until that time, in that moment. And so that was really nice, because typically his response would be to fly off the handle in anger, and be just so disappointed in my decision to go in there and sit down and drink vodka instead of fixing that car. He would just be so angry and frustrated and want to just stomp his feet. That would be his typical reaction to something like that. But he stopped and thought and let's have a conversation. Let's talk this out. And I want to help him. And it was great. It really did help me. I think from there on, I was on the phone with I got on, after that, we did fix and repair the car. Tony Sr. and them were getting rid of a car at one point later that year, and I was like, "Hey, can I have that car? What you don't want it no more? I'll take it." I was calling owners, going, "Hey, do you got a guy that's going to drive your car this weekend? I'd love to be the guy driving it." I would never do that before. So his sort of pep talk and conversation gave me a different perspective on what I should be doing and how I should be thinking about getting that next opportunity. And it was a groundbreaking moment for me.
And I think maybe it was the first of many of those moments for you, because I saw how proud your dad was of you as you matured. And, I used to just wonder, because I wondered about this myself, is he happy with me because I'm doing good, or does he like me? What's the situation? But I'm glad I heard that story, because it seems like at that moment it changed you, and you went out and did the things that you've been able to do because of your father's direction.
I wanted to always make him, I think I always wanted to please him. I always wanted to make him happy, proud. I wasn't, up until that point, I wasn't showing a lot of initiative. He used the word initiative a lot, determination and initiative. He wanted you, if you wanted to drive a race car in a shop, you should go in there and introduce yourself by sweeping that floor, cleaning up tools, picking up stuff. And he's like, "Look, the only way you're going to get anybody's respect in this building is by showing initiative." And in his mind, that meant if somebody's leaving out tools after they got a job done, go behind and clean them up, or just do anything that you saw necessary. And that's how you got your opportunities and grew. And I'm like, damn, I got to start at the bottom, like sweeping the floor. Ain't you got to do that? I was totally, I didn't have it all figured out. And, he would help you as much as he could if he knew you appreciated it, and if he knew you were worth it. Right. And if he knew that you would work for it. And so it took me a long time to get that and understand that. I worked at the dealership for a while, and I was sort of on that path to become a service mechanic in a dealership. And I didn't really have any interest in being a service writer or a desk or pen and paper kind of guy. I wanted to be a guy with a toolbox, and I wanted to fix cars. And he gave me a chance. I got fired from that job, but he gave me a chance to.
Wait, wasn't it his dealership?
It was, yeah.
You still got fired.
Yeah. So, and he was surprised that I got fired, but I felt like I took a ton of pride in that job, and I kept my toolbox, my vise, my table, my bay, everything spotless. I kept everything organized, filters and all that stuff in my cabinet organized. I really spent a lot of time taking a lot of pride in that job and doing that job well and quickly. And I had a disagreement about, we were going to have a meeting after hours. And I said, one of the guys in the shop, one of the other mechanics, came up to me and said, "You ought to say something. This ain't right. They're keeping us after work, and we can't be on the clock. I ain't going to sit around here if I ain't getting paid." And so I went, "Yep, I'll go in there and I'll straighten this out." Right. And I walked in there to the service manager, and I said, "You know what? I ain't staying around here if I can't be on the clock." He said, "Well, I ain't letting you stay on the clock. So do whatever you think you need to do." And so I left, and they had their meeting, and I wasn't there. And I came back the next day, and he said, "Hey, you need to think about how much you want this job, how important it is to you, and take about a week off to think about it." I said, "Okay." And so I walked down the hill to the collision center, and I got on the phone with Dad, and I said, "Hey," and these are honest to God the words I used. I said, "I do not want your help. I'm not calling you to fix this, but I just want you to know that the service manager's sending me home for a week." And I told him why and everything that happened. And the reason why I called Dad was because the drive from my house to the dealership was 45 minutes. And if I drove home and Dad said, "What are you doing here? Get back to work," and hey, he's coming back up there to work. Now I've drove up there twice in one day. That's almost $15, $20, $10, something of gas. I ain't got that kind of money to be spending. I wasn't making a whole lot of money changing oil at the dealership. So I couldn't afford to be hustling up and down the road. And I called him. I said, I don't want you to fix this. I'm just letting you know they're sending me home. And he said, well, how about go back in there and tell him you're working or you ain't working. Tell him, man, I'm going to work or I'm not working. You make up your mind. And I said, okay. So I went back in there. I never even told the guy that I talked to Dad, right? I probably could have. Maybe I should have. But I probably would have still had the job. But I said, hey, man, I'm working or I'm not working. You just make up your mind whether you need me or not. And he said, you should probably just get somebody to help you load your toolbox up because I don't need you. And so he fired me. I got my toolbox loaded up in my little S10 pickup truck with one of the mechanics, and I drove home. And I pulled into the shop, and Dad goes, dang, he fired you? And I said, he fired me. I told him, I was either working or wasn't. And he said, all right, get on out of here. And he goes, man, that guy's an idiot. That's what he said. And that I don't think that guy lasted another couple months, but
wouldn't think so.
Dad was like shocked, that the guy fired me. And I said, yeah, he fired me. I was making like after taxes, $130 or something a week. And it wasn't much, but it was a lot back then, for me. And me and my brother Kerry, we lived in a double wide together and we split the utilities. But he was a service writer. He wrote the service, you came in, man, my car's broke. He would write up the service writer and hand it to the mechanic. He was doing that job at the dealership. So we both worked there. Dad said, I'll put you to work here. You can work here. And he paid me twice as much as I was working at the dealership. And I got to work on Kelly's race car. Kelly was racing late models at Hickory and Tri-County. And he put me working on her cars. And I got to build her a car. So here I am now working on race cars every day and getting paid to do it. I was in heaven. It was so perfect for me to be able to do that and learn so much. To be working on a race car every day just was awesome. I loved it. And I never thought that was ever going to happen to me. But eventually, I was working on Kelly's car and going to the racetrack with her. And then I would race my own cars. They were at another shop down in Union County. But, that was a crazy time. But, I worked on my own late models all through the last couple of years. I raced, set them up, took them to the track. I had some help. Wesley Sherrill and a couple other people would come and help, but we all about knew the same amount of information. And, we would all huddle together and decide what we were going to change or do. And we had a blast driving up down the road every weekend. We raced at Florence, South Carolina on Friday nights. And then we'd race at the beach, Myrtle Beach on Saturday nights. And when those racetracks were off, we'd go to Nashville Fairgrounds, which was a blast in a late model stock car. So much fun. Those are some really fond memories of going to the Nashville Fairgrounds. We'd drive up there, man, and we'd stop about halfway in the mountains and jump in the creek and cut the trip in half, and goof off and have fun.
That sounds awesome. You were kind enough to have me on your Dale Jr. download last year, and I have an update for you I want to share concerning Mr. Robert Presley.
Yeah.
On your show, I told you that I thought he wrecked me on purpose that day in Bristol, which, by the way, is 30 years ago this week, which
wow.
boggles my mind. But so I go with Phil Parsons, and we go down to the Southern 500 because we want to see all the throwback schemes and say hi to everybody. And they've got a group of retired drivers and people going up on the stage. You were there. And, you're just getting recognized for being an old racer, I guess. And so I'm standing sort of in the crowd with Phil. Phil and I went down together. And I noticed Robert. He spotted me. And I see him working his way through the crowd. And I'm kind of working my way the other way because I knew exactly it was just shortly after we did the podcast. And I could tell by the look in his eyes, he's wanting to talk to me.
That's so funny.
I finally shuffled my way all the way around to a corner I couldn't get out of. And he came up to me and he said, Michael, I didn't wreck you on purpose that day. I did not do that. And, but we had a big laugh out of it. And it was because of, I haven't talked to him in years. And because I did your show, it brought us back together. So
I love that.
Say thank you for that and share that funny story with you.
I love that. I love the way that your show does the exact same thing. It brings out these conversations and memories and stories, and you're surprised. I'm surprised, that Robert would watch it or hear it, or it would get to him, and then it brings those conversations back. And I miss all those guys. I didn't know Robert really well. I didn't race against Robert a lot, but I love being able to go back. I don't know why I love it so much, but why that has gotten stronger over the last couple of years. But I love being able to see some of the guys that raced from the 70s, 80s, and 90s and be able to sit with them for a moment and just see them, put my eyes on them. But we're doing a little show called it's a Lost Speedways kind of show about ghost tracks, and we go to Asheville. And Robert helped us a lot with that show, so I got to spend the whole afternoon with him. And what a character that guy is!
Yes, he is that, and a really he was a hard racer too. His family grew up that way, and that's just the way he was born. Speaking of history, today in 2003, you won your 4th straight race at Talladega. Now, that's an incredible accomplishment to finish 4 straight races at Talladega. But what a role DEI was on back in the day. And I tell people all the time that Dale, your dad, just knew how important a car was. They're important everywhere, but he just wouldn't let any detail go unturned when it came to tuning the engines, tuning the cars for Daytona and Talladega. I think that our inspiration to win at those places, because we knew he expected us to do that, and second was not an option. And seeing you get those 4 in a row, that was pretty incredible.
That meant a lot to me because so Joe Whitlock, he used to be a journalist, and he was a lot of things in NASCAR, but he was writing for Grand National Scene back in the day, and I would go over to his house and talk to him and spend a lot of time around him. Him and Dad were friends back in the 80s and so forth. But Joe Whitlock had these 2 cassette tapes in his house, and they had highlights from all these races in the 70s on them. And he gave it to me, and it was eventually what we used to make the TV show back in the day. Bud Lindemann put this show together called Car and Track or something like that back in the 70s. And he would go and film with multiple cameras the races before they were on TV, and he would cut them into like 20-minute highlight reels. And on that, cassette tape was Buddy Baker winning 3 in a row at Talladega, and in Bud Moore's number 15 car. So Buddy Baker won 3 in a row at Talladega in the 70s, and I thought, I'd won 3 in a row, and I thought, man, if I could win 4 in a row, that'd be really cool. I'm not going to break a lot of records in this sport. A lot of the record, I'm just not going to do it. But man, here I can have a record of my own, right? This will be cool. So that ended up working out and ended up winning 4 in a row. It's something I'm extremely proud of. I think, that we had really good cars back then. We had me and you both were partnered or paired with crew chiefs that put a lot of emphasis on the plate cars, and they also knew really how to get a lot of speed out of those cars. And they didn't work transparently together, but they watched each other and took from each other to get better too. I think both of our teams sort of elevated each other in a way. And that was also around the time where we were really reaping the benefits of the RAD program, where Richard Childress, Andy Petrie, and Dad had put together a program to spend time either with motors, wind tunnels, and whatnot to get everything they could out of the cars and motors and bodies and share that information among the 3 teams. And when you see, you would see that performance out of Andy's cars. You would see them do well at the plate tracks. The Childress cars ran well, and when we obviously ran well as a team too. The other thing, to that is you were always a really good plate racer. I was too, and you put me and you in great cars as teammates where we can, take care of each other or help each other and do things like that. That was an advantage that we shared. And both of us won some races together doing that. So it all those ingredients kind of came together to help us show up, for quite a while there. With some of the best cars, and if we did our job and took care of them, we were going to have a chance, really, really good chance of winning those races. And so I took that. We went. I don't know how to articulate this, but I went to Hendrick Motorsports, right? And they do everything great, right? They're a great company. They're very, very successful. Championships. They're just awesome. But I was sitting with Steve Letarte, and I said, Steve, we went out and tested together, and I got off the track, and I came in there, and I said, Steve, this car won't do anything I want it to do. I'm not going to have a chance to win this race unless I can get this car to be more effective. And it's not, when it's in certain positions, it's terrible at its job. It's really bad. And I said, he's like, well, you're really good at this and you'll figure it out. And I was like, why I'm good at it, but I also need the car to be good as I am. Right. And so we had a conversation and he put an emphasis on all the little things. And they had this before, but I didn't come in here and change the culture at HMS. That's not what I'm saying. But between me and Steve, we had a conversation, and I said, I really need you to be a detail guy when it comes to building this plate car. You're going to spend 3 months on this thing in the off season, getting it ready for the Daytona 500. I need every detail, every stone over, and anything that you think, no matter how small and frivolous it may appear or be, I want you to do it. And so he had this long thing, that he sort of went through and did to the cars, and immediately the cars responded, and we had fast cars. We went to Daytona and won a Daytona 500 and won at Talladega, and that carried over to more wins and more success at those racetracks. And, plate racing, there's two ways to go about it. You can approach plate racing like, all the cars are equal. I don't have a whole lot of control over this. I'm just going to hope for the best, miss all the crashes, and maybe we'll be there at the end and have a shot at winning. Or you can really turn over every stone and check every box and do every little tedious thing to the car and go there and give your driver a little more of an advantage over the next guys. And when he has the car that does all the things, when he has a car that he knows and has confidence in, he's more apt to take the risk of making a move or pulling out the pass, or he's going to drive with offense instead of driving defensively. If you're a plate racer and you're driving defensively, it's miserable. And you're not doing anything to put yourself going forward. You're doing everything to try to maintain where you're at. You're never going to win a lot of races like that. And if you're a driver that has every bit of confidence in your car that it can do everything you want it to do, and even then some, you're willing to take those risks with that car and go after every run that it creates. And so, that's sort of the approach that I like to have with plate racing. And I think that that's the one we had back in DEI. They did every little thing they could to get power out of the motors. The teams and crew chiefs, Tony Sr., Tony Jr., they all did every little thing they could to the body, to the chassis, to anything that they could try to tweak or fix or rig, they would do it, and that's how you win races, those plate races, because all the cars aren't the same, it's not a level playing field. You got to try to find that advantage. You got to try to set yourself apart, even when the draft's trying to neutralize it.
Interesting that you say that, because you've had a lot of success with your team winning Daytona this past February with Noah Gragson. So that direction has been passed down from your dad. And to me, the RAD program was before its time. I mean, they were brilliant to share that information and then have the success that we had as racers. Obviously, I'm beside myself about your dad. And I really want to know, what you think the world would be like around here if he was still here. People ask me that a lot, and I try to get my arms around it, but it makes me cry. So I don't really spend a lot of time thinking of it. But he was a tremendous leader, and I dearly miss him, as I know you and your family do as well.
Yeah, I think that the whole everything would be completely different for me if he were here. And I don't really know. I can't even imagine. My life is so completely. I'm so far down the road of life and how it is since he's passed that I can't even imagine. I can't even bring myself to imagine a world with him in it, or what that world would look like, or where I would be, or what I would be doing, or what kind of person I would have become. But I do think about, man, I wish that he could have met Amy. I really wish that Dad could have met Amy. It's for the same reason that, I don't know how this is going to sound, but for the same way that, I wish he could have seen me win this race or be a Daytona 500 champion. I wanted to make him proud, and I think that he would see Amy and go, I'm really proud of Dale Jr. He's making a good choice here. Cause boy, he was really vocal to me about the girls that I would go out with when he was around, and I would take the girl, go out with girls. I mean, I'm thinking, man, this is a good looking girl. I'm going to take her by by the farm and introduce her to Dad. And I take a girl over there and I'd just say, hey, here's Dad, the girl. And he would, I'd get on down the road and do whatever we were going to do that night and see Dad the next day, and he'd go, I don't like her. I don't know. Something about her. He'd have some reason, and so critical. I think it's a bad decision to keep going out with her. I wouldn't do it. But I think that he would have been really, him and Amy would have really got along great. It would have been tougher on me because it would have been both of them cracking on me and giving me a hard time about, staying up late, racing online and doing things like that. But I think he really, really, really liked Amy. And obviously, I would have loved to have shared, my Isla, with, and seeing how Dad was with her and what he thought. I don't know, whether we would talk about, me as a father and doing those things. It sucks that he can't see it. I mean, maybe he can see all this. Maybe he is looking down and proud and think, loving everything he's seeing. But it was so easy and nice to be able to have his direction, to have him walk in the room and go, why are you doing it that way? This is the way you ought to do it. Because that was his strongest, most impressive attribute was his common sense, his problem solving. And man, this is how you ought to fix that. That's easy. Yeah. And I'd be sitting there stressing over something for hours, and he'd come in there and just go, boom, there it is, fixed. Yeah. And so I miss that a lot. And I'm sure, he could have fixed a lot of decisions that I made in my life that I had to make on my own. But I know that him and Amy would have got along really well. And I so badly wish that she could have met him, because I can spend hours and hours and hours sharing photos and talking to her about him, or taking her to talk to Richard Childress or you, or I can take her and do all these things and we can watch videos or whatever, but she'll never really know him, what it was like to sit in a room with him, what his presence was like. I wish so badly that she could know that and experience that for herself, because I love her and I want her to know me and him and all those things, and it's not going to happen. But I don't know. People always ask me all the time about what what would racing be like? I don't know. I can't even answer that. What his influence would have been on the sport and how that might have shaped it to what it is today. Can't even go there.
Well, when Amy hears you talk about him like that and how much you respected him and appreciated him, I'm sure she's gonna anytime you do, she's gonna know him better than she did before. Our time together was special to me, and obviously it didn't all turn out the way we wanted it to. But there's a Bible verse that my sister-in-law Stevie shared with me, and it paraphrases, but it basically says, "In the blink of an eye, if you believe, you're in the presence of the Lord." And I just take comfort in that. When Dale saw that wall come and he said, "Oh, here I come, God. Here I come, Lord. Make room for me." And in the blink of an eye, he was, in the presence of the Lord. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for doing my movie with me. I wouldn't have been proud of it if you weren't a part of it. Because you were such a big part of the story. So thank you for that. It's been received so well. I've gotten so many messages about people that say that you and I have helped them overcome some of their adversities because of our perseverance. So I know that's special to me. I'm sure it means the world to you as well.
It does. I've know that, you and Dad were great friends, and I know that, you've been affected by his passing and how the role you played unwillingly in all that, really affected you personally, and even still does today. And so I hope that the movie that you created, In the Blink of an Eye, I hope that somehow helps you and gives you some peace, and because you're a really great guy, Michael, and there's so many people that love you and want you to be happy, and I know you're happy. I know you do things that you enjoy, and you golf, and you have good days, and I see a smile on your face a lot. But there's a part of your heart that's broken, and in your mind, it's always going to be broken. But I hope that, this experience with making this show In the Blink of an Eye has been a healing, process for you in some way, and gave you some comfort, because I think you're hard on yourself. You take that whole experience very, very personally. And, I just want you to enjoy your life. And so, I think that this experience has been good. I think it's been good for you. And that's what I think about it. When I think about the movie, that's where I go. I know people are going to enjoy it. I know you did a great job. It's very proper production. It's well done. And I hope it has just all the success it can have, because it's a great story, and I certainly want more and more people to see it and hear it. But I hope out of anything that it gives you comfort, and gives Michael, you as a person, some relief, because I know that just being around you, and when we're talking about Dad and sharing stories and so forth, I can tell that you're hurting, and even after all this time, it's as painful as it was when it happened, and we all deal with these things differently, and I know other people close to me that are equally as troubled or equally as frustrated with how this has affected them, and so you're not alone in that, but I just hope that this movie really gives you some peace, man. It's got to make you feel great that you've done a good thing, and I know that in your heart that's all you want, is to be doing good things to help, to shed a light on something you believe is good, or share a moment that you feel people need to know, and you want to share with people how great Dad was, or how much he meant to you, and all those things, right? So you're doing that. It's succeeding. It's working. And I hope that all the words that you're hearing from people, the positive reaction that you're hearing from people, is making you feel good and making you feel like, you know, you can move beyond this and enjoy yourself.
Well, times like this, when I get to talk with you, my friend, and just hear your insight, I learned something that I didn't know. I knew about the wrecked car at Charlotte and you having a bottle of vodka in the double wide. I didn't know about the talk on the back porch that really sent you in a different direction. So again, just a blessing to be able to talk with friends and share these stories with the viewers at home. I love you. I hope Isla and Amy and the new baby are well, and you guys are handling these troubled times as best you can. But certainly appreciate you taking some time to chat with me this morning, and it really means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah, buddy, I love you too, and you know, we're doing great. Just hope everybody out there is hanging in there. It's really a lot of anxiety out there. Everybody worrying about themselves and their families, and just hoping the best for everyone. I'm hoping that this all turns the corner and the world can get back, you know, to work, and people can get back to providing for their families and doing everything they need to be doing. And you know, just hoping for that every day. And again, thanks for having me on. It's always great to talk to you, and we'll see you soon.
Yes, sir. Man, what a great show. What a great time listening to Dale Jr.'s insight on not only family and how he's handling these troubled times, but any chance I get to talk to that man about anything, it makes me happy. I know I shed a couple tears during the show, so maybe you don't know that it makes me happy, but it does. I hope you'll tell your friends about Waltrip Unfiltered. They can check us out on Fox Sports YouTube channel. We're on all the different social media platforms. So we're going to be here week in and week out bringing you guests. And I talked to Dale when the show was over, and I said, we were pretty serious this show. Let's have some laughs next time. Let's share some stories. He said he's in. He's going to come back, and we'll entertain you again. Thanks for watching Waltrip Unfiltered, and we'll talk to you later.
For the best access, perspective, and personalities in all of sports, follow us at Fox Sports on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
For more great NASCAR on Fox content, subscribe to our channel. It's somewhere right around here.